feel like we should always have that waiting room music going, Josh, when you're starting a webinar, we're waiting for everybody to get in the room before we get it going. Just some background music would be, yeah.
I think I've said that every single webinar that we've done, and I totally agree.
I'm copying what you're saying here then, but yeah, something, set the tone.
Yeah, maybe something. Maybe, okay, that's going to be my goal. Next webinar we host, I'll make sure we'll have some. I'm sure Spotify probably has like a playlist of like elevator music. So, but perfect. So we're at the top of the hour right now. I still see a lot of people trickling in. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll go ahead and get started here in a couple of minutes. We'll allow everyone a few minutes to get logged into the system. But I want to maybe set some ground rules for those that are coming in. And as you're coming in, hopefully we get most of you in here. So, but welcome. My name is Josh. I've got Ryan Blumenthal here with me today, owner of Corinne Jewelers. We're pretty stoked about this webinar. We've been planning this for probably about a month or so now, and I don't think we could be more excited to be here today. So, but to kind of lay some ground rules here, your mics should be muted, and we want active participation throughout this webinar. So down at the bottom of your screen in Zoom, there should be a section that says Q&A. That's where you can that's where you can go in to ask questions. And so we'll be answering questions, kind of throughout the webinar, but really hold your questions until the end. We're going to just to kind of set the expectation for the first about 25 to 30 minutes or so of the webinar will be our prepared remarks and our prepared presentation, kind of the big things that we want to go over. And then at the end, we'll make sure to have about 10, 15 minutes of questions. We really want to make sure we're answering your questions, your needs, your wants, and make sure that that's being answered in a timely manner. But if we want to go ahead and kick things off, I want to maybe lay out what the um, kind of the layout of the presentation is. If Ryan, if you want to share your screen, um, I want to make sure everyone is aware of what we're going to be covering today.
Are you not seeing my screen there,
I'm
Josh?
not.
Okay, let me
Are you
stop.
sharing your? One
and
second.
Try to share it again.
So just kind of a brief overview before I kick it over to Ryan to kind of introduce himself. We wanted to go over what today's agenda is going to look like. So really, we want to look at what does clienteling look like and how is Clientbook helping, optimizing clienteling for your store. It's going to be divided up into 4 parts. The first part, we want to talk about sales opportunities. And then part 2, we're going to talk about everyday clienteling. And then executing on special events, especially as we're gearing up for Q4. I think Ryan has some really interesting and valuable insights when it comes to executing on those special events. And then the last part of it, we want to talk about those pillars of accountability. So I guess kind of kick things off, we've got a couple minutes, we've got quite a good group with us. So I think we're ready to get started. Ryan, if you want to maybe introduce yourself and kind of kick things off, let's get the ball rolling.
Thank you, Josh. I feel like with our customers, if I haven't talked to you directly, I feel like I know your stores a little bit. But if for those that don't know me, my name is Ryan Blumenthal, and I work here at Clientbook on the exec team. But I've spent the last 20 years building my retail business, Corinne Jewelers, in Toms River, New Jersey. And when I do these webinars, there's a little bit of being a part of Clientbook, and there's a whole lot of being a retailer in the field, just like you, and how I utilized Clientbook to drive change. And that's why I really became a customer first at Clientbook, and then started helping roll Clientbook out across the country to my fellow retailers. And when Josh invited me today to speak to all of you about Clientbook, there's so much to talk about. There's so many features in Clientbook that I would love to help our audience better understand. But in the short time I have with you today, I want to talk about kind of the groupings of the feature sets I use at my business to drive a clienteling culture. So not necessarily talk about here's how you do messages or do a review and maybe build a wish list. These are all impactful things that you should utilize in Clientbook and learn how to better use it. But I'm going to break it down into these 4 parts about sales opportunities, everyday excellence when it comes to clienteling, special events. I'm sure are important to all of you, are very important to me. And then lastly, how do we make this stick? Pillars of accountability. So let's jump in. Let's start with sales opportunity, Josh.
Sure.
So when I say sales opportunity, we know what that is in Clientbook. We know where that lives, right? It's right on that, your home screen of a customer profile. But let me set the stage a little bit for you about sales opportunities. When I meet with a business owner or my own business, I think about we're going to get to clienteling, but with getting current customers back in. But what about the customers that are in your store actively looking to make a sale? And for whatever reason, you couldn't close them today. Now, I'm going to use bridal and engagement rings as the example here. I'd like to think we all close them that day. Certainly, that's what we're trying to do, right? But this is a competitive business. It has multiple parties involved. There's often more than one visit at the store. And if they're visiting our store, we know the likelihood is that they're visiting other stores as well. So the challenge here is to say, when they leave our store, what are we doing? If we can close it, what are we doing to ensure that we're the store that makes the sale? And sales opportunity is a really great way for us to ensure that follow-up happens. And when I meet with stores and they're still on, client data sheets, I know I was on that for a long time. And we put into a clienteling book and followed up with them, or maybe they're putting in their point of sale, which they don't necessarily maybe love that process, but they're trying to push their team to do it. There's all sorts of different levels of adoption to these programs. I want to tell you that sales opportunity, I feel like, is the easiest thing in Clientbook for you guys to, or one of the easiest ways to maximize business in the coming months as people start shopping as we get into selling season. Within a click of a button, you're going to populate a sales opportunity in Clientbook underneath that profile. This is going to allow all sorts of great things to happen. Okay, we're going to ensure that follow-up happens. And if you think about it, there's a lot in retail, there's a true lack of attention to that. If the sale doesn't happen right then and there, does a sales associate follow up? Or do they just kind of wait for that customer to come back? If you feel like you're on this call and you can improve there, or you're not following up the way that you want to, whether you're a sales associate on this call or whether you're a store manager or owner, sales opportunity is a way to unlock that and make it easy for everyone. It will improve your conversion drastically if everybody commits to a process here. And that, of course, increases sales. So this is a very easy function to utilize as a sales associate, and it's very easy for a manager and owner to assist those sales associates in making sure it happens. In fact, Todd, Josh, you want to go to the next slide? Once you commit to this process, whether you're a sales associate or owner, not only are you going to have a very easy process at the counter that's very quick and one click of a button, so you're not doing a whole thing in front of the customer, but once you do that, you have these easy filters that you're going to use in Clientbook to be able to see where your opportunities are. What's going on with all my sales ops. If you're a sales associate, I know you're doing a ton of stuff. My team is too out there. And it's hard to have so much admin work on your side. You really shouldn't have that. You should be able to click a couple buttons and then have the proper reminders to follow up with that customer, because your lives are busy enough. And if you're a manager or owner, you need a report like this to have these meaningful conversations with your team. And this is something that I'm really proud of my team at Corinne Jewelers for committing to, and it has just a powerhouse effect on our bridal business, which at my store is roughly half of the business that goes on at Corinne Jewelers. So every week now, my store manager is able to sit down with sales associates and they discuss everything they got going on. And they could both see these opportunities right in front of them. And they could say, oh, yeah, we need that 2 carat cushion. Let's get that in. Okay, what do you need on this sale to get it done? How are we working with this customer to get them back in? And prior to this, some of those conversations were be like, hey, Pat, what are we doing for this customer? I know they were in the other day. And you get like these blank, like, oh my God, I forgot about that. All right. So we can't forget about it. We work too hard to get those customers in our doors to not follow up with them. And I believe that sales opportunity could be a giant increase in business if you aren't utilizing this feature today. Let's go to the next pillar here. And that's when we talk about everyday clienteling. Okay, so when I view everyday clienteling is like, why are we doing this? We're either doing this to create an opportunity and drive business to the store, or we're creating a wow experience for our customers to make them fall in love with our business even more. Those are the core purposes. That's what I believe Clientbook is here to do, really. And so, but you want to chart a path for if you're a sales associate, what does that mean? What do I need to do? And if you're a store owner, how are you directing your sales team on what that looks like on an everyday basis? So everyday clienteling to me isn't about we're having an event, we will get to that later on in this presentation, or we're having a big sale. This is rather, what are we doing in these 4 categories? For me, life events. This is like the first thing I think about, right? Is birthdays and anniversaries. We are blessed as an industry that we're tied to such important events in people's lives that can drive a jewelry purchase. But we can only do that if we're capturing that data. I believe Clientbook makes it really easy to capture that data and to utilize it. But this is kind of key for your sales teams. What are they doing on any given day about their customers that have a life event upcoming in the next 10 days, 2 weeks? The second one being, how are they confirming the sale? What that means to me is the sale isn't over when you ring them up at the cash register. That's not when it's over. The sale is over a week down the road, a month down the road, when you call that customer or text that customer and show them your appreciation by ensuring that they're happy, making sure she loves it or he loves it, or that the engagement ring was everything she dreamt of. If you are only reaching out to your customers to drive sales, you will not earn the trust, or you haven't earned the trust to do that. You will only look like you're self-serving. So there's got to be a certain amount of clienteling that there is no other purpose other than to make sure that that customer is so happy. And I know this is something we care deeply about in jewelry, and that's why I love the industry. Next one, cleaning checks, right? That's a big thing in jewelry. How do we get our staff involved in this, or how do we create the processes around this? Why are we doing this? Well, yes, we want their jewelry to be cleaned. We want it to look great around town. The alternative or their alternate mission for that is to get them in our store, get them walking around the cases, and put some more jewelry in their hand, right? This is a big thing for us to focus on. And there's a lot of benefit to that being a part of the mix of your clienteling. And then lastly, I think you're going to love this. So I mention it like that because if you could get a group of sales associates thinking those terms, that you are not cold calling your customers. These are customers that love you. These are customers that have bought before, and you're giving the highest level of service to them when you say, something just came in and I thought of you because I know you're going to love this. Next time you're driving by, come on in. Or do you want to come in? Or can I send you some pictures of it? That's amazing service that really no one in retail is doing. But if you do it, you will surpass your competition. These are four things that if you're not doing this day in and day out right now, you will drive traffic to your store once you commit to this. And I know traffic is, hey, it's up and down now. It's not 22 anymore, 21 when things were booming. It's still pretty good, but it's a little harder these days, right? Committing to this is us as sales professionals saying we are in control of some of that, though. The more we do this, the more business we will drive to the business. And like my old friend Kate Peterson said, who was a great consultant to me throughout my life and in retail and has since passed, but she used to always tell me business goes where business gets invited. And sales associates have a responsibility to that too. So there's kind of two ways to affect this in Clientbook. And we could, or no, pardon me. Let's take a look at what some of this looks like today. So Josh, go ahead. Sorry. We're going to show text as an example here because listen, that's a primary driver of how communication goes today, right? Nobody picks up the phone. I will still tell you the phone has a phone call here and there has value from your team, but we know that they're going to text. That's why it's built into Clientbook for that. But here's some examples of what I think clienteling is and what I don't think clienteling is. So first one, 50% all clearance come in. This is a mass message, right? This is not, personalized. And this likely in today's day and age probably doesn't get a great response. Next one being, hey, Ryan, your online order is ready, for pickup. Well, at least they use my name in that way. This could still be automated, but it is personalized a little bit to me. The next one is, hey, Ryan, did your wife love the ruby necklace you got her last month? We just got a set matching in. Would you like to come in? This is so personalized. This is what gets a response. So when I look at my own team as we're building up in a month and maybe we're trying to drive some traffic and, really putting in the effort, if I see these first two examples, I say, this is not us trying really hard. The third one here, this is our responsibility at Clientbook to give you the tools that you might be able to do this. And so there's really two paths to this at Clientbook. Let's talk about the first one. The first one, we'll call it option one here, is we take a look at a lot of data in Clientbook and we have the concept of what we call sales triggers that based on data, we're going to serve up reminders to sales associates on who to reach out to. And then they got to do some work there to say, if I were to reach out to them, what would I say? How would I tailor this to get to that kind of personalized reach out that we all probably agree on that other screen is the right way to do it? Or they could filter through their customer list. They could, hit that filter button and they could see who has anniversaries coming up, or maybe there's a certain segmentation that they've created in Clientbook that they're actioning that. And then the third one being automation driven. Some of these things can just fly off for the sales associates, birthdays and anniversaries, or review automation is a very popular one. These are things that could kind of run in the background. And this is one of the ways that you can create this culture of we are going to do these things every day. We're going to do that mix. Some of it's going to be life events. Some of it's going to be just for service and making people feel great. And other things are going to be, we got this new collection in, I really want to share it. So my suggestion here is a lot of you are probably utilizing this some way, somehow. Now take a look at it and see if it's serving you well. Is this driving the desired result you have in the store to get your team clienteling? And have you checked all the boxes to set this up? And if you haven't, please reach out to us. Josh and his team will take the time. I am always happy to take a call from a fellow retailer on how I'm using this in my store today. So this is option one on how you might drive that everyday clientele. Josh, let's go to option two. This is exciting. This is something that we released at JCK this year, and it's our AI insights into your client database. And what this does is it automatically, outside of reminders, we kind of move away from that when we use this to a certain degree. We click on the assistant button in Clientbook. It combs through the database to find the right customer at the right time to reach out to. And it gives us so much data that we can do the high level personalization that we would need to. So John Keeney is telling us here, within a push of a button, hasn't made a purchase in a while. And we should probably invite him into the store. We're going to suggest something that you might say so that we can help the sales associates feel like they're not cold calling. And if we click on show details, it will now show you all of his previous purchases. It'll show you the last couple conversations that you've had with John. And ultimately, a sales associate is going to sit here and be like, in really like warp speed, they're going to get up to speed on that account, and they're going to know how best to reach out to John in order to get that clienteling reach out to him. And since we've launched this, we've seen amazing results for people that have committed to it. This is CD Peacock, who's one of our retailers across the country, world-class retailer. They're awesome at clienteling, right? And even before we launched this, they were doing 4 unique, highly personalized reach outs per sales associate every day. That's not a bad number. That's pretty solid. We launched our AI tool with them. They went from 4 to 16, and that happened in a little over a week's time. So, and these are not mass messages, or these are not automations even. These are just us reducing the friction for sales associates to have really high impact, personalized clienteling reach outs that are going to have an amazing result for the business. And I don't think there's probably not a store owner on this call or sales associate that would disagree with what's better, 4 highly personalized reach outs or 16 to the right people. Which one do you think is going to drive traffic? Which one do you think is going to drive business? You know, that much is clear. So I want to encourage everybody who hasn't seen this to please contact Clientbook, and we will walk you through it. We'll talk to you about how this is going to look, and the different tiers that we're in, and what's available to you. But we're really excited. We're using this at Corinne Jewelers too, and we've seen the same result. All right, let's talk about something really important for a lot of us, is special events. And this was something that was instrumental, I would say, in me taking my business and increasing the volume. That it was important for me to learn how to have half a dozen events a year, and for these events not to do 20, 30,000, but rather always over 6 figures. And sometimes, a nice increase over that. So, and there's a big role that marketing plays in your event execution. And I'll talk about that a little bit, but there's also a very huge role that sales associates in Clientbook need to play, in my opinion, of building special events at the store. And so my process is, and we have, for example, a bridal event that's about to happen in about 2 weeks' time. And as I've said before, a big bridal store, we sell a lot of engagement rings, and bands, remounts, and custom rings, and it's a great business. So having events for it is fun. And we do all the typical things. There is a direct mail piece that's going out to thousands of my customers. There's a radio ad that is going through, all my stations that we contract with. And so marketing's doing a handful of things to make sure that this event is successful. Now it's up to sales associates and me standing in front of them saying, the radio ad and the mailer are just to set the tone for the conversation that I need you to have with people to get them in this store. So we are big on reach outs prior to an event. We have a system of building appointments that each sales associate is responsible for a certain amount of appointments. And we set this all up in Clientbook prior to an event. So as they go into Clientbook, we have tailored a segment for them in their Clientbooks. And we've given it the tag name, as you can see here, October Bridal Event 2024. And each sales associate will have an audience. And we've built that, we've imported it into Clientbook, and we said, I really think feel free to add to this, but I really think that this is your segment of customers that are interested in this event. Go to town, go get yourself some appointments. And we set up another tag that says October Bridal Event 2024 confirmed appointment. And now in our 2-week sprint leading up to an event, the radio's going, the mailer's out there, our website's cooking. Sales associates are now part of the process, and they're reaching out to customers and having a highly personalized reach out, inviting them into the store, telling them more about the event. And every day we can see how many of those reach outs are happening, who they're happening to, and did we get an appointment from it? So the lead up to an event, my manager sends to me, here's where we're at with appointments on a daily basis. And he's just pulling up Clientbook and pressing that tag button, and he could see by sales associate how many appointments by who. So if you haven't set up tags like this, and there's a bunch of ways to use tags outside of this, but I wanted to speak to you about special events today. Again, contact your Josh's team here, and they will set it up with you or assist you in it. And happy to talk more if anybody has questions about how we build an audience for an event here. But this is a great way to drive. Using this took my events from being a small part of the business to now it's a giant part of the business. All right, so I'm going to try not to go over time here. Lastly, accountability. So this is an important part of getting anything to happen in stores. I know we all have frustrations, even with ourselves if we try something new and we do it for a week and then maybe we kind of fall off of it. And maybe that's from a sales associate's perspective, and then from an owner or manager, we buy a program or we put in a new process, we're gung-ho for a minute, and then, well, the team didn't do it, or we just didn't make it happen. And having accountability to everybody is such an important part of making this happen. So these are kind of just 3 things that, if you're not familiar with these reports, they've done a lot for me and my management team to be able to just make sure that this sticks, that we really drive the business accountability through this. Associate activity is one of those things of what did we do and what did it look like? All right, by sales associate. If you don't have, I believe by doing these things, you create a culture in your store of clienteling, but there should be numbers associated to that. There should be, in my opinion, a hard number of how many reach outs do you expect to happen in a given day, in a given week, in a given month, and what's the mix of that? Running those reports will really help you see into it. The next one being pipeline. We went over that a little bit in our sales opportunity one, but this keeps everything, everybody seeing the business the same way. We know how many opportunities we have out there. We know we're going to follow up with them. And this isn't to be big brother. This is rather, I believe, store owners and managers should work hand in hand with sales associates to make sure that we're doing everything we can to not miss that opportunity. And then the last one being tags by associates. I showed you that one example, but there's a lot of different ways to utilize segmentation and tags. But again, in my previous example, we use it, one of the ways to say, I could tell you prior to our October bridal event, I will know how that event is going to go days before the event even happens. Pretty close to an exact number. and I will know it strictly by my managers telling me how many appointments we have for that event. So I encourage you all to utilize these. And I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about the new reporting that we have, that some of you may have, and others will have very soon as it becomes available for wider release. And what these reports do is they really simplify the information that you can obtain through Clientbook, because I think our old reporting, there's just a lot. It's confusing where to go. And then what they do a great job of that really didn't have a concept or much of a concept in our old reportings is it follows it all the way to the end. And what I mean by that is it's not just about associate activity that they reach out, how many activities they do in a given time, but rather, and then what happened? What was the result of that? We're going to follow this all the way to the sale. We're going to know if that customer was reached out to for their anniversary from one of your sales associates, and if they came in and bought, or a special event, or there's a number of different ways that we're going to be able to say, your sales associate did this, and this is what happened. Or Clientbook automation did this, and here's what happened. So we believe in ROI. We believe that we should lift the veil on these reach outs to see the power of driving a whole bunch of revenue at a pretty low cost when you think about new customer acquisition versus this kind of revenue. And these new reports are going to help you identify it. And I think you as a business owner and your team members, when they see these, they're going to be pumped about the information that they could get from it. And I think that kind of covers what I'm passionate about the different sections of Clientbook. Like I said, there's a lot of different features in Clientbook and best practices, and Josh and his team could walk you through that. But if you're on this call and you're just, I wonder what I'm missing. I hope I gave you a little bit of that kind of information to say, these are what I use to drive the business, and Clientbook's been a great asset to me as a business owner and for my sales team to make clienteling a culture here. So with that, I'm happy to do some Q&A.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. I always love hearing your kind of experiences and the things that you've learned over the last couple of years of really utilizing this tool. So I always learn a bit. I mean, I work with you pretty closely, and every single time I feel like I always learn something new. So, but yeah, with that said, we would love to answer any questions that you may have. So utilizing that Q&A section down at the bottom, if anyone has any questions, please throw your questions in there. We would love to answer any in-depth questions or anything that we covered, or maybe something that we didn't cover that you want us to touch up on again. Love to answer any questions that you may have. So Ray was asking if you can go over special events part again. So I guess maybe overall holistically, like maybe what's like the pre-event, during the event, post-event, how do you execute events at Corinne Jewelers?
Yeah, great question. And like I said, this is a major driver of revenue for us at Corinne Jewelers. So we like to think that we have a pretty solid playbook, but we're always trying to learn ourselves too. Essentially, events, and I'll use my bridal event again because it's fresh in my mind, it's about to happen here, is we have all the traditional media that you have out there and available to you. So we're on the radio, we're direct mail pieces, marketing, let's say, is doing its part in making sure that the audience out there is aware we're having an event. We then task sales associates to say, this event will not happen without you guys. This is the most important part of building this event, is you guys reaching out personally to your customers and inviting them in. Now, thankfully, the bridal event, it's a really big audience for me, because if you stop thinking about bridal and just an engagement ring and start thinking about, well, it's an engagement ring, it's redoing your bridal set, it's bands, it's anniversary bands. So I like making the event as big as I can make it, as many different options as I can make it. And I always give the sales associates of why is it important for somebody to come in those days, right? Because you need to drive urgency. For me, it's they're going to see more inventory in the store. We have some special guests from different designers we carry. We're going to have special pricing that day. We're going to have a chance to win something awesome. We do $1,000 of Korean cash towards a purchase. And the only thing they need to do to qualify to enter into those things is make an appointment for the show. So I give them a couple things that they might say through text, on the phone, to help personalize and drive urgency for those events. I then take a report that I've tailored in my point of sale system that I think is a pretty good audience for this event. And like I said, that tends to be a pretty big one for an event like this. But when I upload it into Clientbook, I tag it October bridal event. Clientbook will then know by sales associate whose customers are in there. So the sales associates, the morning after I do that, when they open up their Clientbook, they have their marching orders. They know who their list is that they're reaching out to. And then it's about, guys, here's the expectation. Here's how many reach outs we want to see a day. Everybody has a personal goal of how many appointments that they will get to. And we utilize those tags and activity tracker in Clientbook to see daily, are we at pace? Okay, so we know it's going to take a certain amount of reach outs to get an appointment. You know, that everybody's math is a little different there, but you could really point to this after a while and say, we need 20 reach outs a day per sales associate, or we need 10, or, you know, whatever that looks like. And we monitor it for a 2-week period. I don't think it could be longer than 2 weeks, right? That's just, I really work in this kind of 2-week sprint up to an event. And we're monitoring the whole time. And during the event, we're busy selling, right? But we do a post-event recap that is really impactful. And if you use Clientbook, for your events, you could have the tools to be able to do this, because you're going to want to recap what was the revenue, what came from new customers to the store, what came from existing customers from the store, and what came from appointments. If you utilize the appointment tag, you'll be able to see kind of post your event. Wow, Jen had 15 appointments, 10 of them showed up, 8 of them bought. So we have this all broken down to a science after an event. And we could stand in front of the team and we could say, here's how we hit 300 grand in 3 days. You know, amazing event. Here's where it all came from. What it also allows you to do is next year, what are you going to want to do? You're not going to want to do 300 grand. You're going to want to do $350,000. That's the kind of the nature of business. So you could sit down with your team members and say, last year you had 15 appointments. You got $70,000 from it. How do we get you to 20 appointments this year? And you work with them that way. And that's really our, secret sauce when it comes to Clientbook, is that marketing's involved, but sales associates are, they're the most important part of it.
Absolutely, that's awesome. And to kind of go along with that too, one thing I just wanted to mention, and so Ray was the one that asked that question. It sounds like you have an event coming up here in a couple weeks, and that's what my team and I are here are for. So we'll make sure we'll reach out to you post this webinar as well, because we would love to schedule some time with you, with your marketing team, whoever you want to be part of that call. But we would love to sit down with you. We can help build this out, and we can help you do this, live in your account. And then some other questions that have come in, and thanks so much for the questions. One of the questions that came in, I can take this one real quickly as well. Elizabeth was asking, is AI included in the standard package? There actually are some AI components that are available to everyone, even if you're a part of our signature plan versus our elite plan. So to have access to the AI insights, to get those activities, to know who to reach out to, why you're reaching out, different things of that nature, that's part of our elite package. And we would love to sit down with you and show you the value of that. And if we wanted to maybe try it out for free, that's something that we can maybe explore as well. But part of our standard package, everyone should have an AI tool in your messaging portion of your application. So when you're looking at your app, it's a little pencil icon with stars next to it. And what that AI tool will do for you is it will look at your conversation history with the client and help generate responses for you. So I'm sure maybe Ryan can attest to this as well, but that helps save up a lot of time and energy. If you only have a few minutes between appointments and a text message comes through, utilizing that AI tool to help generate a message for you can really help capitalize on your time and focus on what matters most. So everyone does have like an AI component, and that's part of the messaging, but some other of the AI, recommendations or other tools is only part of our elite package. So we would love to answer that at a later time as well. Another kind of question came through, Billy. We'll definitely follow up with you about some of those nuances, but this is a good question I have for you, Ryan. So part of the question was about the differences between the dashboard and the app version of Clientbook. And generally speaking, in development terms, there's always going to be a little bit of differences just because iOS is built differently than like a standard, online platform. With that said, our development team is working hard to make those discrepancies as minimal as possible. So that way, regardless if you're using the dashboard or the app version of Clientbook, it should be pretty seamless across the board. And so we would love, again, we would sit down with you and maybe show you what those differences may be. But Ryan, I maybe wanted to ask you, for you and your team, what are the expectations for the team? Are they mainly using Clientbook on the app version, so like on their phones or iPads, or are they mainly doing it from their dashboard? Maybe a mixture of both. Like, what are the expectations for your team when it comes to using Clientbook on a daily basis?
Yeah, at Corinne Jewelers, every sales associate uses the app. Now we are definitely, when we started using Clientbook, there was only an app, right? We didn't have a dashboard. So that's the world that we knew. And I personally believe that an app, regardless of how much a web-based dashboard mimics an app, there's a reason why apps are so popular. The quick nature of how you navigate an app will kind of always just be that, right? That's why everybody has them. And so I do encourage you, if you have the ability that your sales associates can be on iPads, or I mean, I even let it on their personal devices. I think the app is a fantastic way to have a great experience. Um, and if you're worried about getting iPads, I would say it's likely the very best investment that you could give your sales associate. If they're walking around with an iPad as their client book, it completely a professional device. It will keep them off their mobile phones too, if you don't like the look of that. There's a lot of benefits. We do diamond presentations on our iPads. It's a really good investment for you to make. The second part of that is sometimes that's not able to do that. And I have lots of friends that use our dashboard. And you just have to know that it's a little bit different of a look when you go in there, but the actions can be the same. You just need to, what is the sales associate's experience in this, and how do I teach them to get the most out of it? We will do our part as a company to get that dashboard as closely as possible to the app experience. I just believe that there's always going to be these subtle differences that we'll have to navigate when you go into a web-based program. That's why I keep my salespeople on the app.
Cool. That's great. That's great to know. And so last kind of two questions right here. So the first one from Billy was asking about the payment links. It looks like maybe adding more options to adding like more line options. I think that's a great suggestion. We'll have to follow up with you individually. We'll have to double check with, BlueSnap, our payments processor, and then also with our development team to see if that's something that we can accommodate for. So we'll follow up with you individually after this webinar. And then the last question that kind of came through was, first of all, great tips, Ryan. A lot of good shout outs right there. But the question was like, who do we contact to follow up on this format that Ryan is talking about? So Ray, we'll make sure, I'll take a note and we'll follow up with you individually. But for anyone that's still on this call, the best way to reach your CSM is by simply emailing us at csm@clientbook.com. And again, we'll send a follow-up email to everyone here, and I'll include that email so that way you know who to reach out to. And the reason why we do that, you have, a dedicated CSM team here that's ready to hop on the call to help you out. The reason why we have a general inbox is so that way if your CSM Keegan, for example, he's gone today. So when you reach out to CSM at clientbook.com, either Adam or myself, we can hop in, make sure that you're taken care of in a timely manner. So you've got a great team here that's ready to hop in, help answer any questions that you may have. So reach out to us anytime at csm@clientbook.com. But for anyone that registered for this webinar, we'll make sure to follow up with you individually, especially with the recording of this webinar. But with that said, thank you so much for joining, Brian. I can't thank you enough. I'll make sure I'll buy you coffee next time that I see you. And if we're excited to help you guys execute on your special events. And again, if anything, Ryan and I were here as a resource. We would love to help answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you guys. Have a great afternoon, and I hope everybody kills it for fourth quarter.
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan.